Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Two Up and Two Down. And today we're going to discuss the ex-girlfriend from season 2. So, Chris, why don't you start us off with your first up?
The ex-girlfriend, the first episode of season 2. So this is what, the 6th episode of all time. January of 91. Larry and Jerry wrote this one. 15.6 million people watched it. You'll get a kick out of this. The lead-in, Jerry led into Hunter, of all shows, this night. And you'll never guess who was on that an episode of Hunter that night. Danny Woodburn himself, good old Mickey. So little history trivia for you guys out there, but let's get to it. 2 up, 2 down, 2 negatives, right? 2 positives of the show. It could be anything from a line to, the set or just the whole tone of the show. So here we go. A lot going on in this episode, a lot to like, and we'll get there when we get there. But, I'm going to go with just the intro to Joe's Fruit, okay? Joe's Fruit in general, the cantaloupe, half price, the whole thing, and Kramer and Jerry having the conversation about cantaloupe. I don't return fruit. Fruit's a gamble. I've used that line forever. Just a fun line. And there's just a lot, Kramer picks up on it again, when he comes into the apartment, notices the fruit. So we didn't get to meet Joe yet, of course. We meet him later in the show, but a great way to introduce just Kramer, like neighborhood Kramer. I don't know. There's a lot going on there, but and obviously Jerry's just straight and narrow supermarket guy. But the dynamic there discussing fruit, loved it. We'll always love it, and use it a lot in real life. So that's the cantaloupe stuff. First up.
Yeah, I love that line too. Fruit's a gamble. So excellent up. Tony, over to you. What do you got for your first up?
Yeah, I'm happy O'Hara set the tone for y'all on this one because this is, you're talking about, this is really, for a lot of people, this was the first episode. Season 1 is what, those 4 episodes, you got the pilot, and then this happened, season 2, first episode, their first real season, full season, I guess you'd call it. And what was on TV at that time, nothing like this. I wrote down some notes here that I'll get to as we go through, but this literally, this was like watching a Woody Allen movie in a 22-minute sitcom. First of all, George is doing Woody Allen at this point. Jason Alexander's mentioned this. He's basically doing that early on. This episode epitomizes it. He is just basically doing a Woody Allen impression the entire first scene. And that's my first up, is that entire first scene. And I clocked it too, just because the first scene is 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. It's literally them in the car, George with this huge monologue, just going on about, the whole thing with and then they pick up Elaine, and then George, his first kind of foray, or one of his first forays into the whole, guy in the car seat doesn't want to do that. And then, I'm going from nods to nothing. I love when they do this crazy little songs in there, tie into the duty-free shop stuff. And that's just perfect. This is Larry and Jerry written. The 2 guys, they're writing about what they know. It's such a good opening scene, just the whole talking back and forth. And George is just like, doesn't want to break up with her. Do I have to do it? I can't stomach those things, the whole thing. I want to like her. I don't like, it's very it's all conversation. It's really long scene, things you did not see on television at the time. This is what Pink Hats probably don't like about the early seasons, but this is why the show made it to season 9, because people were watching it then when this aired because of this. It was a completely different show than anything you've seen before. And the first scene epitomizes it. The whole monologue by George. I'll just call that my up. I love the nods to nothing stuff. I just think it's what Seinfeld was early on, to a T. Just George talking about the girl, the Jerry. Is he doing Woody Allen? Yes. He eventually, gets to be George that we love later on in this season. Really, this is still very early on, but I think George is starting to get it. Like, oh, this is Larry David's, with Larry David is a Woody Allen type. So the whole thing's there, the foundation's there, and so that's my first up.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, conversations like that is why we became fans of the show. So good mention there. So Chris, what's your second up?
Yeah, nods to nothing. That is my first note here as well. Incredible stuff. And then listen, this is different George. He's employed at the time. Okay. He's out there dating, doing his thing, but definitely foundational, as we all know. I got a decent amount here, but you know what? I'm just gonna go. There was only one guest star in this episode, Marlene, Tracy Collis. I thought she was, sexy. Jerry, I don't know sometimes. And I love when they talk about that. And then obviously, I think one of the all-time scenes, Marlene and Jerry in the car, kind of at the end. I can't be with someone if I don't respect what they do. And then the classic Jerry line, "You're a cashier." I mean, as good as it gets. What a dynamic! What a scene! And and back then I used to love those car scenes. And back then, people don't drive in New York. Back then they did. Okay, and so what? I just think you got to experience that, and that's what people did on dates. So, which made it maybe less New York and just more relatable, which was the whole point of the show. So, for me, I love Marlene. I thought she was great. Didn't overdo it. Man, how George ever got her, I don't know, but give him credit, especially early George, right? Good to see. But for me, I'm gonna go, Tracy Collis. Not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but she was really good as Marlene. That voice, the whole thing, and then obviously the whole cashier line, as good as it gets for season 2.
Yeah, to your point about the cashier line, Jerry's stand-up, kind of goes into that, where it says like, a woman has to like the job that the guy does, but if the guy likes the girl, he doesn't care what her job is. Like, oh, you work at the slaughterhouse? Oh, great. But so Jerry's stand-up, I thought it was also good as well in this episode. So Tony, over to you.
Yeah, good point. I wrote that down exactly. That the show tied the stand-up in perfectly, exactly what you just said, and that's what the show was, right? That's what they pitched it as, and they stuck to it early on, and that's a solid call. I'm piggybacking off my first up, and I'm piggybacking off my first up, and I'm basically giving the next kind of scene that George does as my second up, because again, great George, very long monologue when he tells Jerry how he broke up with her. The whole thing there is amazing. You're up against the wall, son of a bang, click, click, son of a boom. I love that. Firing from up on top of the thing. It's just, this is why we fell in love with the show. Just smart written dialogue. Jerry and Larry obviously just painstakingly went over every word of this thing. You could tell Costanza, Jason Alexander, delivers it perfectly. I weakened a bit, but I almost relented. But the voice just keep going. I'm making a prison break, and then the crying started. That whole thing there. It just so good. And really kept us tuning in early on, and kind of seeing where this was going to go, and so that's my second up.
Great scene there. So I would have chose that too as well. So Chris, we're gonna do the downs. What's your first?
Yeah, that making a prison break, it was almost like you're like kind of reading a book. The way they painted that picture it was brilliant. Great job by LD and Sharonis, of course. So downs, here we go. Again, they're downs, but it's just kind of like nitpicky when I'm thinking about the show. All right, here we go. Jerry went on 3 lunches with and movies and stuff with Marlene. Like, that was before they even did the little kiss in the car. Like, what was his end game here? Like, I know she was like, Jerry, it doesn't mean we can't be friends, but like, so Jerry's just like being friends with her, like going to lunch, having a movie. Like, what was he thinking? Because it wasn't until the end where Jerry's like asking George to get permission, right? What the hell is he doing on these free lunches? She's a good looking girl. Jerry's, mid 30s or early 30s here. Like, come on, well, what are we thinking here? So I just didn't get what was going on. Return the books, fine. And then that's it. Like, you either going to jump in and go right away, like 3 lunches in a movie? Friends don't do that. I don't think so. So anyway, that's my first down.
Yeah, I totally didn't even pick up on that. So good call there. Tony, over to you. What's your first down?
Well, I did pick up on it, and I only wrote down 2. I'm going to piggyback on top of it. I only wrote down 2 downs. I'm not really repeating myself because I'm going to add some stuff to O'Hara's. I'm going to piggyback it. I was utterly confused, and I from the day I watched this episode, every rewatch of this episode, I don't understand anything about Marlene, Jerry, and George. When it starts off, George is telling Jerry about Marlene, and Jerry's like, "Yeah, I told you." Talking about her like he dated her, but he was already friends with her first. Is that what's going on there? And then George dates her. And then when George breaks up with her, to Harris' point, now Jerry's friends with her, but then Jerry dates her. The whole story never made any sense to me. They did not flush it out. They didn't explain it at all. I was utterly confused by it. I know it's early on, but they didn't have friends outside of their group. So however Jerry knew Marlene, was it through George? Did George meet her through Jerry? I know these are silly questions, but they're legitimate downs because the whole story kind of falls apart and doesn't really make sense. The episode's called The Ex-Girlfriend. It's George's ex-girlfriend, and then Jerry. None of it makes sense to me. And I don't like to think about that kind of stuff when I watch the show. I just want to laugh. So I'm piling on that down because I don't have that many written down. And I think it's worth reiterating that even before the Jerry dating her stuff, I was confused by Marlene and what was going on there. Because they do mention it early on where Jerry's like, I told you she's a good, talking about her and how Jerry had conversations with her too. And so there was some weird tie in there that I never got. I don't know. That's my down too.
Those are all good points. So yeah, we'll go with that as a down. So Chris, over to you. What's your second down?
Yeah, I don't know if you want a response or not, but I think George was just dating her, and that was it. And they went out a couple of times, probably to a bar. Well, knowing these guys, probably not a bar, to a coffee shop. Jerry was there, so she just got to know Jerry a little bit. And then that's where she was like, Jerry, doesn't mean we can't still be friends. Like,
no, but at the very beginning, when George is talking about her, Jerry's like, he basically says like, I told you when I met her.
Yeah.
That's a line by Jerry. So who met her first? That's the part I didn't understand. But
yeah, I hear you. And I think a little weaving into that, like he mentioned, I love you. And again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Sienna, the whole thing, but we won't go there. But I have a nitpicky down. I think Tony's going to take it. He always takes these ones. So I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to go, yeah, I don't want, that's too low. I don't know. You mentioned Elaine, and I loved her in the beginning. I don't think there was enough Elaine. This was a Jerry George episode, clearly. But the Queen of Confrontation. Like I think there was a lot more they could have done with that. I think that was a really interesting story, and the way she depicted that obviously nods to nothing in the opening. It could have expounded, whatever the hell the word is, but I think they could have done a lot more with that. She left you wanting more, which is good, but when there's more Marlene, and I gave Marlene an up, but I said when there's more Marlene than Elaine, I don't know. I probably have an issue with that. So for me, not enough Elaine is my second down.
All right, yeah, thank you, Chris. So Tony, over to you. What do you got for your second down?
Okay, this is why we do this on the fly, folks. So the only other down I wrote down, I only wrote down 2. The only other one I wrote down was not enough Elaine, but she just took. But he said during his down, I'm not going to take the nitpick one because I know my partner will. And I didn't know what he was talking about because I didn't write it down, but I just thought of it, and I know what it is now, and I'm gonna guess that he thought I was gonna go with the phone thing, wrong number thing, and I and I and I and I am gonna go with it now.
Tony will take.
That's incredible, folks. This is why we're doing this for 4 years and counting. Like, I didn't even have it written down. I'll show you what I only have. Where's my thing? So I only have 2 downs written down, and one of them says not enough Elaine. That's my whole thing, and he just took it. So I'm switching, and I'm going with what he talked about. I probably would take it. I'm going to take it because he's right. I don't like it. Is it my wrong number or is it not the wrong number? That's why he calls back again. See, you would have told me what happened the first time. Although, I do love the nostalgia of it because that's one of the things I love about Seinfeld. We get into the whole library science thing. Why I started I like that it's a capsulation of that time period, and that was something that happened a lot. The wrong number. You don't get wrong numbers anymore, really, too much, right? So I do like it as a nostalgia aspect, but I don't like it in the scene. I don't never like that stuff with the phone stuff. I do like some phone stuff. I should take that back. Don't tell me what happened in the Met game. I taped it. That is one of my favorites, but to Howard's point, that'll be my down. The whole wrong number silly stuff, kind of filler that Jerry just wanted to cram into the episode while him and LD were writing it. They needed to cover 35-40 seconds, so they used that joke. So that's my second down.
Good job there, guys. Yeah, not enough Elaine is definitely and her storyline was kind of weak in this one anyway. So let's wrap it up with your final thoughts and your grades here. So Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, the classic phone stuff, Tony, or George swallowing a fly. I thought that was a kind of nitpicky, but a couple of nitpickies. But for the most part, listen, kicks off season 2. Big season 2 fan. Sets the tone, nods to nothing. I think you said it well. The opening scene set the tone, and we learn a lot, right? Foundational learning here. I said not enough Elaine. Okay. George is incredible, right? I mean, we forget about George at the chiropractor, right? Touch this, feel this, $75. What am I seeing, Sinatra? I'm only paying half. I love paying half. I mean, only George, right? And then Jerry says he paid that, the whole thing. I love the books discussion, right? Books. What's your obsession with books? You read the books. What do you need them for? But again, I'm with George a little bit on that. You like to showcase some books sometimes. Kramer, right? Joe's Fruit. And yeah, we could use more Kramer too, for sure. But I love him coming in, golfing. It's all in the hips. And then him and Jerry kind of have an interesting conversation about the situation and psychosexual and all this stuff. The Marlene scenes. There's a lot here. I mean, and the writing was tight. Really good episode. I only wrote 1 grade, and I'm going to, we're going back and forth here, but I'm going to stick with what I got on my gut. The Ex-Girlfriend's a B+. I think it's that strong. I love how it kicks off season 2. Yeah, okay. Can we nitpick on how they met and all that stuff? And why did Jerry go out with her 3 times? Sure. But funny's funny at the end of the day. And it was tight. And it was those 2. I love when those 2 are the anchor, quite frankly. Even though I say I want more Kramer, more Elaine, there's only 1 guest star. Fine. That's the show. And that's the foundation. So B+ for the Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah, and to your point, you don't need to overcomplicate things. Funny becomes funny, with the right material. So, Chris, thank you for your grade and thoughts there. Tony, what do you got for your wrap up here?
Wow, that's a high grade, I have to say, and I get all his points, and I think he's putting a lot of stock in the nostalgia of it all and the foundation of it all and the learning, which hey, that's I'm on board with all that. I pay what I pay. That's the line, the great George line too. It's weird with these grades, right? Like, what are we grading it against? This was unlike, I mentioned this earlier, this was unlike anything on TV at the time. This was a breath of fresh air. This is, there was nothing like this on TV. This is what hooked us. This is the foundation. Chris Schmid mentioned the stand-up stuff. That's what the show was, right? But this is what Pink Hats criticized about the show, right? This is what they're going to point to. It was slow. It's all dialogue. There's not a lot. To O'Hara's point, there was really not a lot of any Elaine stuff. George is doing Woody Allen, but it's fine because it's funny and it's still Costanza. It's still LD written. It's still got Jerry doing his thing. To O'Hara's point, it's Jerry and George. That's the show, right? We're not going to change it. However, I mean, I got to be fair here. I think a B+ is too high for me. The swallowed fly thing I do like in this episode. Obviously, I hate it in Summer of George because it's so stupid. But this is a good George. Shows how he's a very hypochondriac type of person. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? What can happen? Funny stuff. Calling it back in the Summer of George is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I got to be fair. I think I was confused by the Marlene stuff. It is, there isn't enough Kramer, although it is good foundation stuff. There's not a lot of Elaine. Obviously, they didn't really know what to do with Elaine yet very early on. We're not even talking. To Harris' point, I love season 2. Don't get me wrong. Season 2 is one of my favorite seasons of the show. It's right up there for me with 3 and 5, obviously, and 4. But 2's there. Don't sleep on 2, folks. But I'm going to go lower. I almost dipped. I can't go this. I mean, I dipped into C pluses, but I think I'm gonna stick with my gut. I can't go that low, but to be fair and to kind of throw a nod to the fact that it isn't yet the show. I mean, it's getting there. What are we grading this against? It's one of those things where, man, B+. More power to him for that. I can't go that high. B-. I'll go B-. I'm not gonna go into the C range. I can't do it, but I think it's not as. I got to be fair to the rest of everything else. I mean, as season 2 progresses, we get to see some really solid, strong, obviously AA+ type stuff. I mean, I don't think this is beating the pony remark. I don't think it's beating the jacket. I don't think it's beating the phone message. It's not beating the statue. It's not beating the revenge.
You're not finding a C in season 2.
I didn't give it a C. I know, and I didn't give it. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm just going to the rest of my season 2s. This is at the bottom, and yes, I agree. It's not a C. It's a B-. It's as low as I'll go, but I will go there. A B- for the ex-girlfriend.
That's season 2 in a nutshell. Very solid season, like you guys mentioned. But you guys are still in the range B+, B-. Definitely some great points by both of you. So definitely it's a season and an episode that's worth always checking in on. So thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on our next episode.